AI is hot. So, what if you created a software agency that focuses on AI? Well, that's exactly what Andy Walters did just 10 months ago. And he's already making over $130,000 every month through his agency called Haus. In this episode, we're going to discuss how he did it and how you can create a career as an AI engineer.
Well, it's funny, the term AI engineer is really just developed in the last 2 or 3 years, I suppose. And it's sort of the way I view it is it sort of sits between a traditional ML engineer and a traditional application engineer. So this new kind of class of engineer has arose where they may not understand ML to a super deep level. They might not be doing Jacobians and linear matrix algebra and things like that. But on the other hand, they're very good at prompt engineering. They're very good at building retrieval augmented generation systems, and they have a real clear sense for what are the kinds of use cases that tend to work well with generative AI. And so that is kind of this new skill set that's arisen. And so that's part of my story is I became one of those people, and then started an agency, and in the last 10 months have been focused on that exclusively.
Got it. So to back up slightly, the reason that I'm talking to you at all is because of Twitter. So I saw you post recently that you were having a lot of success as an agency that is specializing in AI. And obviously, like Wayne Gretzky talks about skate where the puck is headed, and everybody seems to be talking about AI to the point that some people are annoyed by it. Me, I'm fascinated by it. And obviously, you saw an opportunity and dove in. Can we back up and kind of give me a sense of how you ended up specializing here? Because AI's for many people young enough that I'm assuming that's a fairly recent shift for you. How did you skill up?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my background's in software engineering, and then I moved into the world of project and eventually product management. But when GPT-3 came out with an API, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, I immediately recognized there was something transformational about this technology. It just completely upends the human computer interaction paradigm. All of a sudden we can talk to computers. Like we're living in a world where computers can basically pass the Turing test. That is so new, right? And there's just a rich, vast array of possibilities that I don't think we've even begun to scratch the surface of. And so I got really excited about it, really curious, dove in, learned as much as I could. And then I started a SaaS company. That SaaS company, we pivoted multiple times, and I ended up building just about every use case you can build under the sun. And ultimately the SaaS company, I got it mildly profitable, not hugely profitable. I finally sold it recently. But I decided I wanted to focus on a service business because a service business is resilient to all of the change in AI. In the SaaS business that I ran, feels like we would develop one feature and then the platforms would come behind and eat up that feature and have built it and made it available to all their users for free, right? And that kept happening over and over again. And so I learned a lot of lessons about how not to build a SaaS company, and also that if I could find a way to be resilient to it, I would love that. And so that is the genesis of my agency now, Haus, which again, it's only 10 months old. Yeah, as you mentioned, I hate to be braggy about it, but yeah, we're doing around 130K a month, and we've got a team of about 9 people. And it started with just me as a solo dev.
That is a crazy trajectory of growth. So you're saying 10 months ago was you?
Just me. Yep, that's right. Yeah, okay. Just little old me. Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Okay, so give me a sense then. Anytime you start that sort of thing, you've got to decide. I mean, deciding to add people to a team isn't easy for anybody that's an entrepreneur. You obviously saw some signal that said, okay, I need to add people quickly here. How did you decide that 10's the right number? Is this a slow roll?
Yeah, no, good question. Well, so we're a services business, and the beauty of a service business is it's very cash flow positive right from day one, right? And so I didn't have to go raise money to hire a team. I've only grown at exactly the pace that my clients can support. And so pretty much when we get a new project, I hire another developer, right? And as long as those clients
Mm.
tend to stick around, which they do, then we've grown that way. So that's one of the really nice things about this kind of a business model is there's not a lot of risk on over hiring. I mean, of course, you could overhire, but if you do it right, the risk is quite low.
I would think that it would be rather difficult to find people that you feel like have sufficient expertise. What is the sort of thing that you're looking for in someone that you hire today?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think curiosity is one of the most important things that I look for because this is such an evolving space. People on Twitter, like if you're on Twitter, you're probably plugged into the fire hose of what's going on with generative AI. And so I look for people who are curious, who are engaged. Then of course, like I do want people who have, the ability to build a RAG system, right? But I'm not, depending on the project, I'm not always looking for the deep ML engineer. We do have some of those folks, and they're very valuable when we're working on certain kinds of problems. But honestly, more of our work right now is somewhere between web and generative AI. So actually having engineers with experience on web, like can you build an app in TypeScript, or can you use Cursor to build an app in TypeScript? Is also a skill that's very useful for us, as well as, like, again, yeah, do you understand the basics of RAG? Can you use Python to build kind of a generative AI, something or another? Those are the kind of skill sets we look for. But I look for the curiosity first. I also look for the drive. Like, do you have any personal projects or just like fun things that you've done on your own that demonstrate you have an interest in this technology and in just getting out there and building some cool stuff?
I love that almost everything you said there would have sounded very familiar even 20 years ago when I was starting my career. That this and when I interview developers, I'm looking for curiosity. I'm looking for the feeling that if I hire you, you're going to be better in a few months than you are today. I want
Mm,
somebody that's excited to learn every day. And that's where I love asking, where did you learn these things? And that is a good segue to my question. You talk about, like you said, RAG, for instance, retrieval augmented generation. That's
yeah.
fairly new jargon for people that are outside the AI space. And I would summarize it as enhancing a given LLM with current information. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, retrieval augmented generation is what you do when the base model isn't going to know the right answer. So the term was actually invented by one of the lead engineers at Cohere, Patrick. Can't remember his last name, but it's basically a way of injecting information into the prompt that is going to be relevant to answering whatever the user has asked the AI. And there's a lot of ways to do it. It's been very kind of monopolized by the idea of using vectors and vector search to pull relevant information into the prompt. But there's other things you can do as well. It doesn't have to be vector search. It could be keyword search. It could be data from an API. It's anytime that a user asks a question, you can use the intelligence of the AI to figure out what data is likely to answer this question, where can I get that data, and then once I have that data, can I filter it to answer the user's question properly?
And there's this fork in the road where the AI has to figure out whether to go use this augmented information or what's built in. And part of that, I assume, is the art of doing this well.
Yeah, it's the art of sort of prompt engineering, but also maybe just AI engineering is the right term for that. Another really common paradigm is tool calling now. So we give the AI a list of the different tools that it has available to it, and those tools could be things like, "Hey, here's a database with these kinds of tables that you can retrieve data from," or "Here's another AI that's a specialist in this type of task, and you can ask them these kinds of questions." You give the AI a list of these tools, and then from its own sort of tool belt on the fly, it figures out which tools it wants to use in what order to answer a user's question. That technology it's pretty good. It's definitely much farther along than agents, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's fully baked or like fully reliable without at least a lot of kind of hand engineering put into it.
I see. So we're in a place right now where it feels like everybody's talking about AI, and I assume when you go hang out your shingle and you say we're an AI agency, to some degree, that natural momentum is going to bring you work. Can you give us a sense of what you've done over these 10 months to help market your services? How do people find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the most important things you have to solve if you're going to try and create a high growth agency is your top of funnel. And every major agency has is worried about this from day one, and there's a myriad of strategies. We've had success with a few channels. Cold email has actually been wildly successful for us, believe it or not. LinkedIn has been successful. Twitter has been successful. And then, of course, just kind of like word of mouth. It shouldn't be overlooked that if you can find one or two clients and do good work for them, they will likely recommend you to other clients as time goes on. And so that's probably maybe 40% of our business, new business, has come from that. But one of the things I would say to people who are thinking about starting a business in this space is the demand for these services. My sense is it's absolutely off the charts. When we first started our cold email campaign, I thought, this is so successful. We're just using some incredible cold email tactic. What I realized is no. Actually, it's just that there's a huge amount of demand for generative AI services right now. Why? Because it's on everybody's mind. Nobody knows, well, maybe not nobody, but not many companies have a very clear roadmap for how to integrate it. And there is not a whole lot of expertise out there, especially not expertise that can speak kind of English at a product level, or whatever language, not English, but non-tech at a product level, and engage with clients that way, and then translate that all the way through to actual working code. And then there's the additional lacking expertise of, can you take that solution and have it not just be a demo, but be a fully scalable production ready application that's been evaluated properly? That's another piece of expertise that we kind of bring to the table.
Got it. When I asked that question, I did not expect you to say cold email. That is,
Yeah,
to
I
me,
was
that's a
shocked.
testament. Like that actually, it almost worries me because it speaks to, if that's effective, then how hot is this market?
Yeah.
Like how hungry are
Be,
people to fill these
Totally.
needs?
Totally. I mean, that's what I mean is like spray and pray strategies basically right now are totally working in this for this horizontal generative AI across industries, across even the size of the companies that you're engaging with. Um, Huge demand.
So you're saying you would look out at the landscape of companies and say, I suspect this company might want AI. Like, how would you even decide if you're going to do cold email?
Yeah.
You don't email everyone. You I assume are targeted to some degree.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when I started the company, I intentionally started with just a very wide net, right? And with a thought of, let's sort of see what sticks. And what I've learned now is there's maybe a few industries that it's harder to deliver value for. I think like um, certain kinds of manufacturing industries aren't very amenable to generative AI. Like anything that's not really engaged in a lot of knowledge work, those industries tend to be like, it's harder to find the use cases. Sometimes those use cases can be there, but like in manufacturing, for example, a lot of it is sort of deep classical ML that they're doing, which can be really useful, but it's not what we do. Um, so that's one thing I've learned. Another thing I've learned is, companies between sort of like 20 million and 500 million is around about where we tend to do well. We don't have to go through huge procurement worries to get working with the team, and they may not have the in-house expertise. And then, there are certain clusters that we've seen, like SaaS companies wanting to integrate AI, like pre-existing SaaS companies want to integrate AI into their offering. Another one too is startups who raised on a demo, and now have to go actually build the thing with generative AI and make it work at scale. That's another opportunity that we've seen. And then just like internal process automation for what we could term as like sort of legacy technology companies. That's another huge opportunity.
Got it. So, all these different ways, this is a question that I like to ask any software agency. What work do you say no to?
Yeah, great question. Um, I think that the most important thing we say no to is fluff, is stuff that's not going to really deliver value. I don't think I've ever said no to a client, but I've said no to some of their ideas, right? Because
Hmm.
AI right now, in a lot of the minds, I think of executives, is kind of magic, right? It's like maybe we could construct a statement here, like any technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic to executives, right? And
Hmm.
we're just like, AI is just above the threshold where they don't understand it yet, and so. What happens? There's a really good thing that happens with that. What the good thing that happens is they start getting imaginative about the problems they could solve with technology. The bad thing that happens is they think they understand how it works and they know what the solution is going to be and how to deploy AI to fix it, right? So a lot of times my job is to judo that energy, judo the energy of let's go solve an amazing problem with technology that's going to transform or accelerate our business, and then take that and say, and actually, here's how we'll do it, right? Here's where AI can plug in, and let's find the valuable problems. This is another thing that's super important, is you have to find a valuable problem to work on. A lot of times clients come to me with ideas that would be cool, right? But how much value is that really going to drive? And so there's a heuristic that I use, which is you should be able, if you're doing something with generative AI, you should probably be taking a workflow and speeding it up by 3x or more. And if you can do that, you're probably delivering real value to an organization or real value to customers. If you're not doing that, you're probably just doing something that's like cool to do, but isn't really going to drive ROI.
Hmm. So there's two interesting things there. One thing that you mentioned there is 3x. Is there some reason you say 3x versus 2? Like I feel like if something's twice as fast, isn't that good? Or
Couldn't
if it's
be
even just 20% faster, isn't that sufficient to
right.
be
I
a
mean,
win?
obviously, there's real savings along that spectrum, however far you go, but with 3x, you get something that is so obscenely valuable that you are going to incentivize your employees, your end users, or whatever to make the jump. 2x sounds great, but in practice, in my experience, much better to shoot for something a little higher than that. That I wish I could say, I wish I could claim credit, although I'm happy to defend the idea. I did not come up with it myself. There's a product guru guy who I cannot remember off the top of my head what his name is, but he teaches that, and I locked on to that early in my career, and it served me well.
Got it. Okay. So then the other thing that you'd mentioned in there, when you have all these different all these different ways of thinking about adding value, and it seems like in many cases somebody comes to you and they're actually getting the cart before the horse. They're saying, I want to use AI because I just want to use AI. And I get the impression that at the moment that may be a fairly common situation where people maybe from the executive level are actually pushing down to people saying AI is obviously so transformative. If we're not doing something in this space, we're probably falling behind. So just go
Yes.
find somebody to help us. Is that the normal
Yeah, great
thing you're seeing
question.
right now?
Yeah, great question. So when I speak to audiences of executives, that is very much what I see in those rooms
Mm-hmm.
is we know we need to do something about AI. The question is what, right?
Yeah.
And so half of our company, at least in theory, is based on answering that question. What do we build with generative AI? That's our consulting offering. But I said half of it, like in a theoretical way, it's half of it, but actually like 85% plus of our work is doing the thing. The second piece of our company is, okay, how do we find the right resources to build the thing? I think because we tend, with our marketing, we tend to catch people towards the bottom of a buying funnel on generative AI. We tend to get projects where they know the use case. They're like, okay, yeah, we're coming in. We think it's this, right? And so that's where the judoing comes in case it's not a good use case. Is okay, how do we dig down deeper to the right problem and solve that? Or potentially we just run with whatever they came in the door with as their idea. But I do think there is still an opportunity, especially for mid-market and SMB, to reach those people with consulting around what should you build with generative AI. I think enterprise is pretty well served by the Accentures and the Deloittes of the world who have already made their billions on generative AI consulting. Like, damn, missed that train, right? But mid market SMB still has a lot of work to do, a lot of alpha left on the consulting side, I think.
Why wouldn't those mid markets go to something like Accenture, or do they?
Too expensive. So, to work with Accenture on a generative AI roadmap project, I don't know, maybe I'll get in trouble for saying this because maybe it's not exactly right, but I think it's like, $1 million to start or whatever. So it's
Okay.
some huge sum that's just like not realistic for a lot of these businesses.
Totally get it. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Lots of different ways to add value then.
Yeah.
So then can you give me a sense that there's so many different ways to use AI? Do you feel like you all have any specializations that have popped up in these 10 months?
That's a good question. Um, Yeah, there are so many different ways. There's so many different use cases, really. There's reporting and content generation. That's a really common use case. AI assistants, AI agents, and then multimodal AI. That's sort of the four areas that I kind of guide clients towards when you're thinking about what are the kinds of use cases that would be valuable. Um,
Can you sort of summarize those? Some
yeah,
people may not know exactly what those mean.
Yeah, absolutely. So reporting and content generation is like, hey, I want to use an LLM to give me some tailored data, some tailored summaries, maybe of a large body of data. Right, that's kind of the reporting. Or content generation, I want to use an LLM to create my marketing materials for me, or some long piece of documentation that's required, something like that. LLMs are very good at that sort of thing because it's all words, right? And they're large language models. And then you've got AI assistants. AI assistants are, used to be called chatbots. I hate that term though because it's associated with this old era of chatbots. There was a mug at a chatbot conference a number of years ago. I saw it said, "What do we want? Chatbots. When do we want it? Sorry, I cannot understand that query." And so that, like, I don't want to be associated with that, right? But AI
Yeah.
assistants, that's actually a really good use case as well. A lot of times we actually move in sort of this order where we'll work with clients on reporting and content generation, and then we'll say, hey, what if we could chat with these reports? And that then opens up a new use case. Then there is this kind of emerging use case of AI agents. This space is still, underexplored, underdeveloped. A lot of potential with AI agents, and by AI agents, I think I mean sort of everything from kind of AI infused RPA, robotic process automation, data extraction, ETL pipelines, that sort of thing, all the way up to autonomous workflow completion, where I can say, okay, go make me $50,000, and it goes and figures it out and comes back to you and says, great, I deposited it into your bank account, right? As soon as we can
Mm.
have one of those, I'll take one. But the last one is multimodal AI. And so, image generation and manipulation, audio, media. Um, our agency has done some work with multimodal AI, which I think is something of a specialty. We've worked on some projects around, image manipulation, but also audio and video. We've done a cool like AI video clipping service where you upload a long video and then we pull clips for you automatically. And as well as like audio transcribing, some other things. So that's been an interesting field for us. But AI assistants, I would say, are quite common with us. A little bit of our bread and butter. We've actually developed some internal software around that use case. So yeah,
Got it. So the AI assistants, I think the delineation that I would make is the old stuff tended to, well, as you alluded to, not be very effective.
yeah,
And I think part of what's made the new stuff much more effective is you end up training it in your domain. So it truly does have intelligence in a way that can be effective. This is an area that I don't understand well, but imagine that I have this big corpus of knowledge, and maybe it's a lot of blog posts or it's
yeah.
documentation or whatever it may be. How practical is it for a layman to create their own AI using that sort of stuff?
When you say a layman, do you mean like an end user to create an AI system that engages with that material, or what do you mean?
Well, I should clarify that. When I say layman, what I actually mean is someone who is a software developer but doesn't really have
Yeah,
much experience on the AI side. So
right.
technical but new to AI, which probably describes a lot of people right now.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, this is the crazy thing. Let me just say, like, I interview a lot of folks. I talk to a lot of software engineers, and there is a weirdly small subset of software engineers who have gotten engaged with generative AI. But let me tell you, like, I started with just software engineering, and I learned AI engineering. It's it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. It requires a little bit of kind of like just learning some of the fundamentals and some of the basics. But as soon as you learn the paradigms, then it's really kind of just like almost anything else in software. I mean, it's obviously different in some key ways. It's not deterministic, so that's a little weird. We're used to, as the software developers, we're used to talking about deterministic solutions, but now we talk about the vibe of this model. It's definitely a little different than you're used to, but it's really not rocket science. And one of my messages to your listeners would be: go out there and explore, learn how retrieval augmented generation works. That's a great place to start. It's not that hard. There's some great frameworks out there. We just announced a partnership with Llama Index as one of their experts. And Llama Index is a great way to get started building retrieval augmented generation very quickly. You can take a large corpus of knowledge like you're talking about and build a system that queries that using AI really easily. So the water's warm. There's a ton of opportunity here.
So that alludes a lot to the area I wanted to explore more. So imagine that you're someone who is a competent software developer, but you want to at least be generally proficient in AI.
Yeah.
What is your take right now? For one thing, let's start here. Do you think that it is a risky move for a developer to ignore AI today?
To ignore, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
in more than one way. So in one way, if you ignore AI and don't use AI to help you write code, you're just going to become increasingly slow compared to your peers who are using AI. Yes, there are problems using AI to code. It's certainly not perfect, but studies have been done on this now, and it is effective. You will save time. Yes, it takes a little while to figure out how to use it. Um, maybe there's some, if you're, I don't know, if you're writing like assembly code for the United States nuclear arsenal or something, maybe there's some use cases that AI really is not going to be great for if you're coding. But like in like 95% of use cases, like you really need to figure out how to use AI to accelerate your workflow, whatever that is. Cursor's a great start. If you haven't played with Cursor, get in there, do it. And another thing is like make sure you're using a good model. Like use Claude Sonnet 3.5. That probably is the best coding model in the world right now. Use that, figure it out. Then the second way to risk not to engage with AI is, yes, in understanding how these generative AI systems work. If you don't understand those as they increasingly become prevalent, you're going to have to interact with them, and you'll increasingly become, less relevant, depending on how much exposure your job has to these kinds of systems. And I'm sure there's plenty of people who will have like zero exposure to those kinds of systems, but I would imagine probably more programmers than not will end up engaging with them at some point.
Okay. So, and that was exactly the answer that I expected and exactly what I would advise as well, just based on my experience. Where do you feel like, what would you advise a developer to do if they are early? They know the basics. Maybe they've been using GitHub Copilot
Mm-hmm.
and they've heard of other LLMs out there. But what if they want to go to this next level and actually pursue being an AI specialist like yourself?
Yeah.
What did you find most useful?
Personally, YouTube was amazing. It
Hmm.
absolutely taught me like most of what I know about AI engineering. You can go so deep on any topic that you want, right? And so, I spent some time trying to understand how the hell the transformers really work, right? Amazing videos will explain so much, right? I just treated it like lecture in college.
Hmm.
So YouTube is very helpful for that. And then, of course, like you've got a ton of open source repos that are great guides on how to build any particular type of system you want to build. And like with anything else, like you learn the most if you just try and do it, right? So I would say like get out there and try and build something, some personal project, pet idea, something you think you could sell to a client. Try and build it with AI and get stuck, and then figure out how to get unstuck. You'll learn a ton, and that, at least for me, that worked really well.
I love, again, your advice here mirrors any advice since YouTube has been around. You
Yeah.
know, it's always been out there. And given there are lots of other places to watch courses and things, and I've
Yeah.
paid for courses, but there's wonderful free content out there. And then that whole idea too, anytime I interview someone and they have a repository related to the technology that I want to hire for, that tells me, all right,
Right.
you've put in a little bit of more effort than most people would. You've set yourself
Absolutely.
apart, and now you can have
Absolutely.
an intelligent conversation. So
Yeah.
I love that this sort of advice is evergreen.
It is, and
Uh,
and I think kind of like a meta point here is generative AI feels so new, it feels so groundbreaking and maybe scary that it's tempting to abandon some of the kind of like the fundamentals of our job. But what are the fundamentals? On the product side, the fundamentals are we building something that's really driving value, and is it more valuable than what it costs to develop? That's still true. You still got to use that framework to figure out what to build, right? On the development side, like just like you said, like how do we learn? By building, by trying, right? By engaging, by seeing what others have done. None of that has changed, and so yeah. Although AI feels so new and so groundbreaking, it's a lot of the same stuff. A lot of the fundamentals have not changed. And the other thing too is like, with clients and things like that, like relationships matter. Your ability to articulate things matters. Your ability to make connections with people, that is still hugely important, right? So
hmm. Oh yeah, that is totally evergreen. Really agree with that. I also think about, though, here's the tricky thing about where you are right now. When an agency opens up, they'll often have a specialization. Like you might have an agency that says, we do WordPress. We're
right.
really good at WordPress. You come to us and we know the technology and we'll solve your problems that way. When you are an AI agency, people are going to come to you and they could be in Ruby or Python or .NET or Java or whatever,
Yeah.
which puts you in a bit of a weird spot. Have you found that to be at all a headwind?
Yeah. I've not found it to be a headwind so far. I do, yeah. I mean, the classic advice, which I used to give to my CEOs when I was like managing director or VP of agencies, is let's niche. You got to niche down, right? That's the classic advice,
Mm-hmm.
and the theory behind that is solid. The theory behind that is if you niche down, you're attaching yourself to some kind of like some market in a way that's recognizable. And because you do that, clients are more likely to buy from you. You're more likely to understand their use cases, and so on. And I think that theory is valid. But on the other hand, with generative AI, it's so new. I think it is actually a specialty right now. It is its own niche. Now, over time, I think that will change. And so I do foresee, like in my agency's future, we probably will have to niche down. I'm not convinced that we want to niche down into a vertical. We may want to niche down into a certain software ecosystem. But there are different niches that you can find, and certainly I think you could find a niche in like certain languages, like you were saying, like for example, being in the Microsoft universe of AI. Um, Microsoft has like these funny mirrors of all this stuff we're used to in Twitter open source world that are good for enterprise, right? And so if we got really good at that, being in that space might be a great niche to be in, versus kind of more the traditional web frameworks, being in that space as a niche. So I don't feel like we've been forced to make that choice yet. And so far, I've seen some good cross pollination between the various ecosystems that we land into with clients. But that may change over time. We'll see as we grow. But again, the message from me is like the work is falling off the trucks right now. And so you don't even have to be that choosy about it yet. Like, yeah, over time probably, but not right now.
I like that metaphor. Yeah, and I would echo what you said. That's something I've encouraged many people who have struggled to build a funnel. I struggled to build a work funnel until I specialized, and I went big on React right when React
Yeah.
went big, and I said all I do is React, and that's one of those things that was really stressful because I had a history in .NET, and I'm going, okay, I'm going to have to let this door close.
Yeah.
But I really like the concept. Jeff Bezos talks about two-way doors, that you can have this sense that something's really risky if you walk away from this technical specialization, but recognize it's a two-way door. You could go back to
Yeah.
it
Can
again.
go
You're
back.
not permanently leaving it.
That's
So
right.
I went big in this one thing. And the moment that I did that, like I had a full-time job and I ended up with, I kid you not, I think it was around 45 companies reached out to me that one year while I had a full-time job. So I was trying to do work on the side and I realized, okay, no, I need to quit my job.
Yeah.
The funnel is here. It would be silly not to do the work.
Absolutely.
So I also find it interesting when you talk about choosing a niche. Like right now, you are right. AI is a niche until you have enough companies that are coming out and saying, okay, we are the AI specialists in a technology stack
Yep.
or in an industry like
Yep.
construction or whatever it may be. You're going to get these combinations of skills. But
That's
right
right.
now, I think you're smart to just AI is enough of a niche for now. So
Yeah.
that makes sense to
Well,
me.
and it was an intentional choice. So a concept I always love to go back to is this concept of the multi-armed bandit. I don't know if you've heard of this.
No.
It's a funny problem it's actually in mathematics, but it feathers into computer science as well. So the multi-armed bandit problem says, okay, what if you have, like, you walk into a casino, there's like 10 one-armed bandits, what they call slot machines, right? 10 slot machines, and you have like 1,000 quarters. In what order should you put your quarters into the slot machines to get the maximum returns, assuming that there's variable returns on each of these slot machines and you don't know the rate of return? And is there a kind of algorithmically correct way to do that? And the answer is, yeah, there is. And basically what it boils down to is you have two phases. One is an exploration phase and the other is an engagement phase. In the exploration phase, you stick some quarters, like maybe 5 quarters or whatever, into each machine, and you try and calculate the rates, and then, or probably more than 5, I don't know, whatever it is. If you have 1,000, maybe 20 quarters, something like that. And then at some point you just choose and you double, and then you dump all your quarters into that slot machine, right? And so I
Mm.
set up my company. We have a 5-year plan, and in year 1, which is what we're currently in, we are intentionally putting our quarters in a lot of different slot machines. We're intentionally seeing where is the demand, what are the potential niches, where do we do best, right? But then I absolutely have it in our plans for years 2 and 3, to begin to niche down and find the place where we want to be very intentional about being leaders in that space. And we have another partnership with an enterprise content management company that we're really excited to announce soon. It's not totally finalized. But that may be an interesting space for us to play as well as potentially a leader in that space too. So we're exploring a bunch of different niches, and I think that's okay to do for a little while.
Oh, I think it's smart. Yeah, you keep trying things and then you double down on the thing that really works.
Yeah,
That's a wonderful model.
yeah.
I'd never heard that story, but that makes tons of sense
Yeah,
to
it's a
me.
great problem in math. It works for
Yeah,
everything too, like for life too, and like career choice, for mate choice. Like there's a lot of problems that it applies to.
yeah, and it's why you shouldn't go to the casino and just play penny slots all day. You're never like
Exactly.
you got to make a big bet at some point.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
true.
that okay, that makes sense to me. So can we get specific for a second? I'm
Yeah.
just curious. What are a couple of things you guys have built that you're most proud of?
Sure. So we built a couple of cool systems. One is a system for a company called Local Falcon. They're a local SEO platform that helps you understand how your business is ranking, your physical brick and mortar business is ranking within a certain radius on Google Maps. So if you have like an ice cream shop in Austin, you can see on Google Maps how well you're ranking all around Austin if somebody were to search for you there. Um, they were great at getting that ranking information when they hired us to work with them. What they were not great at yet was delivering tailored recommendations on how you can improve your rankings. And so they knew that AI was probably the right solve there. And so we were brought in. We did a lot of work to take the domain expertise out of their heads and bake it into an AI, and then used what we built to generate reports and content generation. So we currently generate like 200,000 reports a month for their customers on all of these different scans that are run, and then we have the ability to chat with those reports, but also just to generally ask questions about how they can improve the various locations. That project is emblematic of how generative AI works in an interesting way, which is, although that company had, whatever it is, how many billions of data points they have, we use some of that data in the sense that it informed the kinds of expertise that we baked into our system, but we did not train a model from scratch with that data. And this is a mistake I think I see some people make when they think about AI. It's like, oh, we need a ton of data and then we're going to go train our own model. Well, that's what you needed in the classical ML days. And for certain kinds of problems, certain kinds of scales where you have the data and you have the compute, absolutely can be the right solution. But what generative AI has allowed us to do is to use these pre-trained models that are extremely valuable and do not require huge amounts of data or compute, and therefore makes that available to companies that are smaller than the OpenAIs or the Googles and the Microsofts of the world. And so it was a cool project. Their users love the AI that we built. And find it valuable. I was talking to one user the other day who said, "Yeah, it's the best AI you can get in local SEO, and my account manager uses it all the time to explain things to their clients." So that was a cool project. I'll tell you about one more. We work with actually a sermon company. So you go in after you preach your sermon on Sunday, you upload your sermon, whether that's video or audio, and then it generates a bunch of supplementary content from that. But we had to do it in such a way that it didn't sound too ChatGPT like, because ChatGPT has these ticks like, in the ever evolving landscape of navigating to,
Yeah,
and like instantly, if you see that, or at least if you're me, I completely tune out whatever the rest of the content. Like, okay, they didn't even edit this. Um,
yeah.
so we managed to get around that problem largely by using Claude, which is a great writer model. But we also did a couple of cool things where we had to like pull clips from videos. So we transcribe the voice and then figure out where the right clips would be to pull using an LLM. But then also with that, we had to make it social media friendly. So we had to go from landscape to portrait, but you can't just go in the center, right? Because sometimes people's face is over here or over here. So we had to
Right.
use AI tracking on every frame to find the face, and then smoothly keep the camera moving towards their face to make the clips, and we did other things, transcription stuff. So that was really cool. So those are some of the things we've worked on.
So I noticed you mentioned Claude in there at one point,
Yeah.
and I think about more broadly, you can go up to higher level abstractions. I'm curious how often you all end up choosing some AI that is offered as a cloud service through something like Azure, AWS, whatever it may be. Do you find those useful? Is the pricing reasonable?
Yeah. Well, we go in with kind of the philosophy that we're going to be model agnostic. And it really does depend on the use case, because some industries have weird requirements like, oh, all of our data lives on-prem, but it's fine if it goes to the cloud, or all of our data lives on-prem and it's so secure that we can't have anything go to the cloud, right? And so if we're limited to like an on-prem model situation, that's a much different world. We've got to think about the Microsoft Phi models and a lot of these, or maybe some of the Llama models. Um, but for most clients, we're able to assuage any fears about data privacy and hook them up to OpenAI or to Claude. Those are really the two most powerful models for pretty much anything you need to do. Gemini is great for super long context stuff. If you need to dump just like a crap ton of tokens in, that can work. And then for those who have like HIPAA compliance requirements, OpenAI offers a really good solution for that through Azure, like you mentioned. We haven't had much luck with some of the AWS models that are available there. They tend to be just like lesser quality. So, yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense. In some cases, you've got to do on site, and that again gets back to you saying we're not going to choose a niche. You come to us. Generally, we are solving problems in AI, so you're getting a lot of exposure in different places. And I suspect if I talk to you a year from now, you're going to say, "All right, we found an area that keeps us plenty busy,
Yep.
and we are better than anybody in the world. So this
That's
is going to
right.
be our thing."
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, right
That's
now
the
you're
plan.
trying many things. Love it.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like any developer's early career. You're drinking from the fire hose and paying attention to what you like and
That's
what
right.
you're best at. And okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I've
okay.
found a really amazing mathematical metaphor to justify my ADD. That looks cool. That looks cool. Let's try that. Let's try
Mm.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, it works. Okay, so you've got a group of 10. I actually don't know where y'all located.
So we're located all throughout U.S. time zones, some onshore,
Okay.
some offshore. But one of the things I've been careful to do is, as far as possible, keep U.S. time zones. I think that
Mm.
collaboration really suffers when you have to work very far out of U.S. time, or wherever you are. If the time zones are too far off, that's just tough. I've run those kinds of teams, and it's not fun for anybody. So we've been careful to do that.
Oh, I totally agree with that. One of my clients has a group in Egypt and a group in Argentina, and the overlap is about an hour in the morning where we do stand up, and you go, it is very hard to collaborate in that situation.
So brutal, and then you've got the communication difficulties, and yeah, if you can't just Slack somebody throughout the day, or MS Teams or whatever it is, hey, can you take a look at this or whatever, your communication flow just screeches to a halt.
Mm,
It's tough.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I assume I know the answer to your question here, but I'll throw this out here anyway.
Yeah.
I assume you are optimistic about the future because of AI. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. Do you mean just
Okay.
like broadly the future in general as like humans, or do you mean like my business, or what in what context?
Well, you're obviously optimistic in the short term for your business
Yeah.
for obvious reasons, but there's reasons I ask this question. One is there's lots of developers that are worried about their future in
Yeah.
as a technologist,
Yeah.
and I do think that there. Well, I'll let you speak to this. How much do you think that there's credence to that?
Yeah. Somebody asked me, so I have a 2-year-old son, and somebody asked me the other day, would you recommend that your son go into software engineering? And of
Mm,
course, like 3 or 4 years ago, I would have said, of course, it's a great career, assuming he liked it and was good at it. Yeah, of course, great career. And, but it really gave me pause. And so I don't know that I have all the answers, but a few things stand out to me. One is the job of or the object named computer used to refer to a person. Like that was a job, is somebody who computed numbers on paper, right? And that got
Yeah.
automated. Obviously, we're talking on computer right now, right? So automation happens, jobs absolutely do go away. But on the other hand, if you think about how many people are employed in the computer profession, generally that umbrella, it's massively expanded since that automation. So, do I think that programming will look the same as it does now in 5 or 10 or 20 years? Absolutely not. It doesn't look the same as it did a year ago, frankly. Um, but do I think that there will continue to be jobs in this space? Absolutely. Do I know exactly the shape of what those jobs will be? No. But what I can, I have a couple theories. Like one theory is I think that if you are close to customer problems and able to see how to deliver value with technology around solving a problem as opposed to working with some very particular technology stack. I think that's going to become or at least remain a very valuable thing to be able to do. And then I think the ability to kind of work with AIs as a kind of orchestrator. I think that will become very valuable already. When I'm interviewing folks, like if they have experience using AI to write code, that makes me want to engage with them because I know they're going to be, or I hope anyway, that'll actually make them faster. So I would say, like, in terms of advice, it would be honestly like get as close to AI as you possibly can. Like this is the wave, and so the more you
Hmm.
understand it and you're part of the wave, the less likely the wave is going to crash over you.
Yeah, it's also this aspect of then you're moving with the stream
Yeah.
because things are moving fast enough now that the thing that I'm finding hard is as somebody who's trying to stay a UI specialist at the moment because that's my consultancy, it is difficult for me to also keep up with the rapid transition in AI.
Yeah.
And there's this nagging feeling of I need to know more than just okay, it looks like Cursor and Claude 3.5 are the best combo for me as a software developer. I want to know more about how I actually leverage all these tools, how I built these things for others, and this nagging feeling of at any given point I may be doing it the hard way and not know it. So that gets back to some of what I was asking before of not surprisingly you say, yeah, every developer needs to be paying attention to AI. But I think the hard part right now, the gray line for anybody that's not specializing in AI like you is how much time should I be spending on this? And what in particular should I pay attention to? Earlier, you said YouTube videos, but that's a big, broad market. Is
Huge.
there, I know, like for instance, in the React space, I pay attention to different mailing lists that basically consolidate the latest of what's going on in
Yeah.
that area. Are there some things like that that you all pay attention to?
Yeah, I mean, I think Twitter is invaluable. I love Twitter. I should say I love Twitter or X, whatever we want to call it now. Yeah, it's a love hate relationship with X for sure. But the level of information you get on there, the speed at which you get the information on X, very valuable. Of course, can totally
Hmm.
be a time sink if you're not careful. So, but I kind of use X as my go-to way of keeping pulse on what's happening in the space. And what I would say is like follow some AI um, influencers or voices that are relevant to your space. So you don't have to keep up with everything, but if you keep up, if you find, and whether it's on X or LinkedIn or whatever, if you find somebody who kind of makes it their job to bring the latest advancements in your space around AI to you in a digestible format, yeah, newsletters, like you said, great example. There's a ton of channels to do that, but whichever fits your mode of ingestion of data, go with that. um, and yeah, you choose not to do it at your peril.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. Okay, so let's close out with this. I'm just curious then. Where do you think we're headed? Are there some things that you're seeing right now in AI that get you really excited?
Yeah, there are, I think, if you were to step back and think about on a scale of 5, 10, 15 years, the things that I'm really excited about with AI. medicine? What if we could deliver healthcare to the entire world in an extremely high quality, basically free, at least in terms of the knowledge management portion of that? That is a massive win for us as a society. Education. What if we could deliver the most tailored, effective education to every human being on the planet, essentially for free? Huge win for society. I also think in the media information ecosystem, what if we could use AI to help validate content, to help fact check, and what if we could use that in the sciences as well? There's a huge wealth of errors, bias, fraud, et cetera, and that lives in the scientific literature that's yet to be undiscovered. What if we could use AI to bootstrap our scientific literature to the next level? So I see these like huge potential for AI in our future, and I think it's going to be transformative. To the concerns, to the not to the naysayers, but to the doomers, I would say it's not that they're wrong about there being the potential of problems, because there are. The thing that makes me worry less is that we're talking about these problems. If nobody was talking about how bad it would be to hook up an AI to a nuclear launch code button, then I think I'd be really scared. But the good news is
Yeah.
there's a lot of people talking about that, right? And so the kinds of problems, the kinds of challenges that we're facing, they tend to be more incremental. They tend to be things that have been identified. And so far, if you look at the real world harms that have come from AI, like it's very small, like a chatbot conversation that made me feel a little uncomfortable one time. Like it's not huge stuff. Versus if you look at the wins, if you look at the value that's being delivered, it's massive already. So I only expect those trends to continue.
Love it. Let's close it out on that optimistic note. So, Andy, this was a fantastic conversation.
Absolutely.
How do people find you?
Oh, find me at emerge.haus is our website, emerge.house, or you can find me on X at Andy Walters.
Perfect. Andy, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Corey.
If you enjoyed this, please click like and subscribe. That really helps. And if your team's working in React, I can help. You can find me at reactjsconsulting.com. Happy coding.